Most people think success demands sacrifice. It doesn't. The market doesn't reward suffering, it rewards value. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Whenever something feels difficult, most people assume it's a barrier. But what if difficulty isn't blocking your path at all? What if it's actually the market's way of pointing to the last places where real value still exists? If that's true, then almost everything you've been taught about hard work has been missing the point. From an early age, we're taught to think about difficulty in deeply personal terms. If something feels hard, we assume we're not talented enough. If progress is slow, we question our ability. And if someone else makes it look effortless, we conclude they were simply born different. That belief feels natural because it's reinforced everywhere. Schools reward correct answers more than difficult thinking. Social media celebrates finished success while hiding the years of invisible struggle behind it. Companies advertise convenience as the ultimate goal. Every system around us quietly teaches the same lesson. The easier something becomes, the better it must be. So we spend our lives searching for shortcuts, faster careers, easier money, simpler solutions. We treat difficulty as friction to eliminate instead of information to understand. But there's a problem with that way of thinking. Because if everyone is running toward whatever feels easiest, then by definition, everyone is running toward the same opportunities. And when millions of people chase the same path, something far more important changes than the level of competition. It changes the value waiting at the end. The real issue is not that difficult things are painful. It's that we've misunderstood what difficulty actually means. Most people see difficulty as a warning sign. The market sees it as a signal. A difficult problem usually exists because few people have solved it. And whenever a problem remains unsolved, value accumulates around it. That's how economies work. Businesses don't get paid for repeating what everyone already knows. They get paid for solving what others still can't. The same rule applies to careers, skills, and opportunities. In other words, difficulty is rarely the price of success. More often, it's evidence that value has not yet been claimed. Once enough people solve the problem, it stops being difficult, and it also stops being valuable. The question, then, is no longer whether a path is hard. The real question is whether that difficulty is pointing toward value that most people still cannot see. This is Mind Over System, where we break down the hidden systems shaping your decisions, your opportunities, and your future. Imagine two problems. The first can be solved by almost anyone in minutes. The second takes years of experience, judgment, and persistence. Which one do you think the market values more? Most people answer the second one because it's harder. Not quite. The market doesn't pay for effort. It pays for scarcity. Difficulty matters only because it usually creates scarcity. When a problem is difficult, fewer people are capable of solving it. That limited supply makes every successful solution more valuable. The difficulty itself has no economic value. The scarcity it creates does. Think about a calculator. Decades ago, performing complex calculations was a specialized skill. Today, every smartphone does it instantly. The work became easier, but at the same time, it became almost worthless. The same pattern repeats everywhere. Typing was once a competitive advantage. Today, it's an expectation. Building a website once required technical expertise. Now it takes a few clicks. Writing routine reports once justified full-time jobs. AI can now generate them in seconds. Notice what happened. The value didn't disappear because people stopped needing these tasks. The value disappeared because the difficulty disappeared. This is the pattern most people never notice. Whenever technology, education, or automation makes a difficult task easy, competition floods in. Supply increases. Scarcity disappears. And once scarcity disappears, value follows. In other words, difficulty is rarely the obstacle. It's the market quietly telling you, few people can do this. For now, here's the paradox. The better society becomes at solving problems, the less valuable yesterday's skills become. This is how every economy evolves. A difficult problem gets solved. The solution spreads. The solution becomes normal. And once it becomes normal, the market stops rewarding it. Look at navigation. Finding your way through an unfamiliar city once required local knowledge. Then GPS arrived. The problem disappeared. So did the value of knowing every street. The same thing happened with photography, bookkeeping, translation, customer support, and now, increasingly, with writing and coding. What was once considered expertise gradually becomes infrastructure, something everyone is simply expected to have. This is why so many people feel they're working harder but falling behind. They're improving in areas where the market has already moved on. The economy is not standing still. Every breakthrough shifts the location of value. Every innovation turns yesterday's advantage into today's baseline. And AI is accelerating this process faster than any technology before it. It isn't just replacing tasks. It's eliminating difficulty, which means it's also eliminating the scarcity those tasks once created. That leaves us with a question most people never ask. If technology keeps making existing work easier, where does value go next? It doesn't disappear. It moves. It always moves toward the problems that remain difficult to solve. This is where most people make the wrong prediction about the future. They ask, what skill should I learn? The better question is, what problems are still difficult to solve? Because skills lose value. Problems create value. Think about what businesses actually pay for. They don't pay because someone worked hard. They pay because someone removed uncertainty. A CEO isn't rewarded for answering emails. They're rewarded for making decisions when the outcome is unclear. A surgeon isn't valuable because surgery is physically demanding. They're valuable because very few people can make the right decision when a life is at stake. An entrepreneur isn't rewarded for working long hours. They're rewarded for solving problems that millions of people couldn't solve themselves. Notice the pattern. The highest rewards rarely belong to the people performing the most work. They belong to the people solving the hardest remaining problems. And this is exactly where AI changes the game. As machines become better at solving predictable problems, human value shifts toward what remains unpredictable. Judgment, creativity, system thinking, leadership, trust, the ability to connect ideas across different fields. These aren't valuable because they're uniquely human. They're valuable because they remain difficult to reproduce at scale. That's the rule the market has followed for centuries. Every time technology closes one gap, value migrates to the next unsolved one, which means the future isn't a competition between humans and AI. It's a race to find the next problem before everyone else does. You don't have to look far to see this pattern in action. A decade ago, simply knowing how to code could almost guarantee a high-paying career. Today, coding is still valuable, but writing routine code is becoming increasingly automated. The reward is shifting toward designing systems, solving complex business problems, and making better decisions. The same pattern appears across almost every industry. As software automates bookkeeping, accountants move toward financial strategy. As AI generates content in seconds, companies place greater value on original ideas, clear judgment, and strong brand positioning. As information becomes free, the ability to interpret it becomes scarce. History keeps repeating the same lesson. The market doesn't stop rewarding people. It stops rewarding problems that are no longer difficult. And every time one source of value disappears, another quietly emerges, waiting for the few who recognize where the next difficult problem still exists. Imagine two graduates starting their careers on the same day. The first chooses the safest path. He learns only what his job requires, avoids difficult projects, and becomes highly efficient at repeating the same tasks. Every year, his work feels easier. The second makes a different choice. She volunteers for projects nobody wants. She works on messy problems with no clear instructions. At first, she struggles. She makes mistakes. Progress is slow. 5 years later, something unexpected happens. The first employee is competing with thousands of people who can now do the same work, and increasingly with software that can do it faster. The second employee has become the person others turn to when the problem has no obvious answer. Her value isn't tied to a single technical skill anymore. It's tied to her ability to solve uncertainty. The difference is that one invested in work that became easier over time, while the other invested in problems that remained difficult. And the market rewarded them very differently. Here's the consequence most people never see. When too many people compete to solve the same easy problems, society doesn't just create more competition, it creates less progress. An economy grows because someone solves problems that didn't have solutions yesterday. But if talent keeps flowing toward predictable, low-risk work, fewer people remain to tackle the problems that actually move society forward. This is why every generation experiences the same paradox. Businesses complain they can't find the right people. Workers complain they can't find the right jobs. Both are telling the truth. The market isn't running out of work. It's running out of people willing to solve the problems that still matter. That's why this isn't just about your career. It's about where an entire economy directs its talent. And the societies that continue creating value will be the ones that keep sending people toward difficult problems, not away from them. The biggest misunderstanding about success is believing that value belongs to people. It doesn't. Value belongs to problems. A person becomes valuable only when they stand between a difficult problem and its solution. The moment that problem disappears or becomes easy enough for everyone to solve, the market quietly moves on. That's why no profession stays valuable forever. No skill remains scarce forever. No advantage lasts forever. The people who continue to thrive aren't protecting their value. They're constantly relocating it. They understand that the market never rewards who you are. It rewards the problems that still cannot be solved without you. And once you see that, difficulty stops looking like an obstacle. It becomes a map. Perhaps the goal was never to build a life without difficulty. Perhaps the better goal is to understand what difficulty is telling you. The next time a problem feels unusually complex, don't ask, "How do I avoid this?" Ask a different question. If this is difficult for almost everyone, what value might still be hidden here? That single shift changes everything. Because once you stop treating difficulty as an enemy, you stop making decisions based on comfort. You start making them based on where value is still waiting to be created. And in a world where technology keeps making yesterday's work easier, that way of thinking may become your greatest advantage. Every generation is offered the same choice. Follow the path that feels comfortable today, or follow the problems that still make most people turn away. One path becomes more crowded every year. The other becomes more valuable every year. The market has never hidden this rule. It has always rewarded those willing to solve what others avoid. So perhaps the real question was never whether you're capable of doing difficult things. The real question is this: when difficulty appears in your life, will you see an obstacle or will you recognize a signal that almost everyone else is walking away from?